My favorite is John Quincy Adams. Adams was an old man by the time he served in the House. He's the only president to serve in the House of Representatives after he was president rather than before. And he would fall asleep often, and people knew he wasn't well. They often deferred to him. But he was the senior member of the Whig Party. He sat up in front. But he was very unhappy with the Mexican War. And they called him Old Man Eloquent because he didn't speak very often, but when he did, people paid attention, and he said it really well. And he's famous because his chair sat on the spot where you could hear a whisper across the room. So there's a little bit of creepy about how much he knew about what was going on with the people on the other side of the aisle. But he was giving a speech there denouncing the giving of medals to the generals in the Mexican War because he thought they didn't deserve them. He thought it was an unjust war and they had used overwhelming advantage anyway and didn't deserve any medals for it. When he had a stroke, fell back in his chair, was carried off into the Speaker's office, and he died in the Capitol a few days later, if you go in there late at night, you can hear his ghost in there still trying to finish that speech, denouncing the giving of those medals. Vice President Henry Wilson was the first vice president to die in office. He was really quite popular and well known. And, at that time, people who lived in Washington, or people who were serving in Congress, usually lived in boarding houses, and they wouldn't have any bathing facilities, so that when the wings were added to the Capitol, the extensions in the 1850s, they put bathing facilities for the congressmen, just like we would put a shower for people. But these were bathtubs, and in the Senate they got these 4 wonderful Carrara marble bathtubs carved out of solid blocks and put them down in a really nice spa for the senators. Well, Vice President Wilson, of course, the Vice President is the presiding officer of the Senate, and so Vice President Wilson would use that facility quite often, and some people thought he did it a little bit too often. And in fact, eventually he died of pneumonia that people thought he got from taking too many baths. But he would sometimes be seen rushing through the building wrapped up in towels because he had gotten too late in the bathtub and had to rush back to his office and put his clothes back on to preside over the Senate. And for many years after he died, Senate employees would see this ghost running through the basement of the Capitol wrapped up in towels, just like Vice President Henry Wilson. There is a legend about a carpenter and a stonemason who got into a fight in the Capitol, and they were quite angry with each other. And that after a while the carpenter disappeared, and there was suddenly a new piece of wall that hadn't been there before. Nobody really knew why it had been put up, and some people reported having heard clanking sounds behind that wall as though someone were trying to indicate that they were still alive behind the wall. Because I worked in the Capitol for more than 40 years and started here when I was quite young, I was 18, I've collected a lot of memories. And above all, the building is really haunted by the spirit of democracy.